on top of. Right.
Thank you. So I'm just. So if you're giving a round of applause, please let's do it better. Ubo has mentioned that one of the things we have here in Akwa Ibom State is the infrastructure. A lot of plans and goals and things that we talk about will be mere wishes if we didn't have the infrastructure that our state currently boasts of. So we're very happy and very excited to hear that from him today. I'm going to ask the next question to a business owner here in Akwa Ibom, William Anwana. And we have a lot of conversations that go back and forth if Akwa Ibom is really ready for business. And I just want to ask, how has it been like for you as a business person in Akwa Ibom? What drives you for the future? What are the things that you'd like to see more of here in Akwa Ibom State?
All right, thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. Incidentally, I haven't been in Akwa Ibom as a business owner for that long. I have spent most of my life in Lagos, and I just came to Akwa Ibom, I think, 2020 when COVID hit, because my family is here, right? And what initially struck me when I came here fully was the developments that I saw, right? Because I schooled here, I attended UNIO back in the day, and my first perspective of the town was one of a very significant underdevelopment, right? The first time I came here, the things that I was seeing, I just saw a lot of bikes on the road. And I remember asking my mom, are they having a motorcycle rally here or something? She said, no, this is how they transport themselves. I was like, please get me out of here, right? But by the time I came back and I saw the massive development that had occurred in the space of 10 to 15 years, I was like, wow, I think this shows that we not only have the resilience, but we have the capability, right, to improve upon what we have gone through over the last 30 odd years. So for me, what gives me the encouragement is, number one, the vision, right? Because every great future starts with a solid vision, and that vision needs to be driven by good leadership and governance. So what we're seeing essentially is a government that is proactive, that is taking the right steps in ensuring that its citizenry is coming into the 21st century. In terms of business, we can't say that we're 100%, right? Because when you look at the commercial landscape, even though it is not where it used to be, there's still lots of work to be done, especially when it comes to positioning businesses for the 21st century. There are a lot of things that need to be done in terms of mindset, in terms of capacity building. But I think that so far, with the crop of people that are on ground, with our resilience, our natural resilience, and with our, I guess you could say, our innate ability to want to do more and be more, I think we can build upon these, like my brother over there said, and sort of improve the outlook for the future. I'm looking forward to having a more robust conversation around this as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Please put a round of applause for him. I love the fact that he came, he acknowledged the problems with what he saw, and what I like is that he gave Akwa Ibom a second chance. So sometimes you come somewhere and it's not exactly what you thought it would be, and you're waiting for someone else to fix it. There's so much of this here and there's so much of that here, but you came back and now you have a business here, so you're one of the people to fix the things here. So thank you for coming back, giving Akwa Ibom State his second chance. So I'm going to ask Jeremiah a question now. It's very interesting that he's here as a young person on this stage. I know that a lot of us had so many lofty dreams when we were younger. We could say, I want to be this, or I want to be that. And I'm sure it's almost the same for Jeremiah. But what I want to do is immortalize what he says he wants to become in the future. So I'm going to ask you a very common question. Jeremiah, what do you want to be in future? What is your vision for Jeremiah after this momentous JAM score?
Good morning, everybody. Actually, I want to become an aeronautical engineer with a specialization in generative artificial intelligence. So,
I'm going to ask another question. So what's the vision that you see for Akwa Ibom State? I know you want to do aeronautics, but what is your how do you see Akwa Ibom state of the future? What do you imagine for Akwa Ibom after you've accomplished your aeronautic success, after you've done a lot of the things? How do you want to give back to this land or develop Akwa Ibom where you're from?
Okay. I would like to start with a short analogy. If we know how the United States is, the northeast area of the United States is one of the most developed sections of the United States, where we have cities like Boston, Washington, D.C., and I think I have that same vision for Akwa Ibom State. But you know what made that region of the United States so developed? It's actually education. At the northeast section, we have so many Ivy Leagues like MIT, we have UPenn, and lots more. I have a dream of incorporating AI into the aerospace industry. I was watching a movie one day. It's a Netflix movie titled Lost in Space, and I saw where a 20-year-old pilot was flying through space, and her co-captain was telling him that she should not use such AI. And then she had a trust in AI because she's much younger than her co-captain is. Just as we all here, just as we all are today, we are quite young and we actually have more interest in artificial intelligence than our parents, sorry. So if we can incorporate AI into the aerospace industry, it would actually change and transform the Akwa Ibom state we know today. I'm very grateful that we already have our own airlines, Ibom Air, and I have this dream, your AI co-pilot. Think about that. That's what I want to do for Akwa Ibom State.
I love that. I love that you connected it to Akwa Ibom. I want to mention that Ibom Air is one of our sponsors, and they're very, they're very invested in innovation and developing the state. I think that's the best. Hopefully on Ibom Air here today. If you came to Akwa Ibom State on Ibom Air, please just raise your hand. So we're doing a lot in that aviation space, and we hope that with young minds like Jeremiah, more will be done. We're really looking forward to that. So I have one more question for each of our panelists. For Lucy, what partnerships and collaborations can people look forward to? I know that your office does a lot of things. You can speak to some of those projects here. People hear so much negative news. I know that you have some new things that have been recently launched that you can share with us.
All right, so I know we have a lot of tech experts here. We have a lot of data engineers and AI experts. I'm going to, first of all, ask you what I told myself. I'll give you that advice. If you want to partner with Akwa Ibom, my one advice is to slow down. Reason
a unique opportunity, because I believe it's going to come, but you want to be positioned at the point where you are able to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes. So you stay the course, and the opportunity came, and then I got a scholarship, right? I didn't have to do an interview. It was just very interesting opportunity. I talked to a professor, and that was it. But the interesting thing was when I traveled, right, I did not know necessarily in fact, my idea of IT and the direction I would go, I didn't know it. But I just knew that I wanted to go on this direction, right? And as the opportunities keep coming, because I had the information and I learned, I'm excited to hear all the technical things you said, building good relationships along the way, right? I got the opportunity to work for Dell through another very casual conversation, right? I stayed the course. I worked at Dell for 3.5 years. It was still, and my people know a lot. I still go back and say it's still the foundational learn. And I got the other opportunity to work at Microsoft still through it's just because I was able to know that there's a vision and this is it. And I stayed because you will meet a lot of distractions, I promise you. But if you're able to stay the course and keep that vision as you articulated it today alive, 10 years, you will find out you are closer to that vision than you are today.
Thank you so much, Boa, for sharing that. Because staying the course can be very difficult.
Agriculture, very limited contribution to GDP, etc. but within the space of 37 years, we have become an economic powerhouse. And that has been driven primarily through our contribution to the oil production capacity of Nigeria, right? Where I think the top producing state in terms of oil, we produce about 20 to 25% to the national output, right? Now, on the strength of that, we have been able to do a lot of things in terms of infrastructure, industrial projects, etc., which has been great. However, knowing that, number one, oil output is not necessarily infinite, right? Experts have said that within the next 30 to 40 years, the oil output in Nigeria
I'm excited to be back in Akwa Ibom in Uyo. I'm Nick Martin. I actually have a slide deck, which I'm sure is going to be up behind me just a second. Ooh, a clicker. Okay, just let me know when I'm good to go. So it's true. I'm the founder and owner of Rapid River Software, and I'm based in Maine, which is a state in the United States. It's America's hat. Let me see, get this clicker working here. Clicker. There we go. That's me. We specialize in ice and snow in Maine. We're bordered right up against Canada. Just a second with this clicker. There we go. So I'm Nick Martin from the United States. I've been programming for 44 years. My first computer was an Apple II Plus. And I've been doing this professionally as a web developer since 1993, so that's 31 years. You guys probably heard this last year, but one more year has gone by. Still doing it. I'm also a father of 3 amazing adult children. I'm a nerd. I love to fish, ski, and watch baseball. And I do so in my home state of Maine. And I just wanted to take a moment to talk about some things that I heard on the panel today, talking about returning home and how wonderful it was to see Akwa Ibom grow over time. I've had the same experience recently. I moved back to my home state of Maine, which when I left it in the 1980s to go away to university was a struggling fishing state with the lumber industry and not much more. And now it is a booming technology hub that's drawing people from all over America and actually from the rest of the world. And it's really great to be home. Something important for people who will interact with Rapid River Software as an entity. And to do that, I'd like to ask Philip Kapusta from Cactus Code Software to stand up for a second, please. Rapid River has been working very, very closely with Cactus Code Software for 3 years now. In fact, they've been helping us a lot with our hiring here in Nigeria. And in addition to the 45 people that Rapid River Software has here, Cactus Code currently has 15. That's where that 60 number came from. And Philip and I have actually agreed to merge our companies. So by the end of this year, Tightline Software will actually be the replacement of both Cactus Code and Rapid River Software. You're going to see new branding, new swag, and new website. But we'll be working together to grow our footprint here in Nigeria, both in Uyo and Lagos and Abuja. Getting on to the actual meat of what I wanted to talk about. I looked at the agenda this morning, and the title of my talk was very misleading. It sounded really good, but it's not really what I'm going to talk about. What I want to talk about for technologists, for people who are looking to do this for a living, quite simply is how to survive the tech apocalypse. And AI on US tech staffing. Right? Great way to start a talk. Just see what it says and then go do your research. And this is the first half of what it said. Since 2022, the tech industry has faced a significant downturn in funding and hiring for several key reasons. The post-COVID economic adjustment, which saw companies scale back after a surge in pandemic-driven investment, led to a more cautious spending environment. However, the key thing is that the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes, as we grew from $15 trillion in the economy to $21 trillion, basic economic effects took place. More money and a finite amount of supply meant prices went up. And so here our yellow line representing inflation starts to take off. Now, I don't want to talk to Nigerians about inflation. I know you've had it very, very rough for the last couple of years. So please take this with a grain of salt. I'm talking about the United States economy. But our Federal Reserve tries to target 2% as our long-term inflation rate. Imagine that, 2%, amazing. But we were far, far above 2%. And so the Fed started raising interest rates, that's the blue line, to try to slow down inflation. And then the very, very expected result happened. Borrowing money was no longer free, and so people stopped borrowing money. And as inflation slowed down and crossed the line where inflation was actually slower than the cost of borrowing, all of a sudden tech companies that had borrowed a lot of money to grow very quickly during COVID said, whoa boy, we can't afford to keep doing this forever. And layoffs shot up. And that's what you saw in the news. Layoffs at Microsoft, layoffs at Google, layoffs at Meta. That was simply the cost of money getting too high. And in 2024, in 2024, what we saw was inflation normalized. The Fed was expected to and has started to cut rates. The money supply has flatlined. We're no longer pumping free money into the economy. And so layoffs have come back down. And this is a very boring macroeconomic study, but what I want you to take away from it as techies is, well, my clicker works. Okay. The current tech layoffs are just money pulling back from the easy money era. That's it. Nothing has changed. A lot of money went in during COVID, and now it's coming back out. But the tech industry hasn't fundamentally changed. This is purely a market-driven effect. Venture capitalists and those types, they just love low interest rates. If you give them low interest rates, they will take all the money that you will lend them and they will dump them into tech companies, because in the long run, tech companies return a lot of profit. And so that's what happened. You saw that money supply. It went up by $6 trillion in a year and a half. A lot of that went into capital investments. But venture capitalists also tend to extrapolate trends too far into the future. So that when they saw easy money, they committed to a level of staffing and growth that was not sustainable if anything was going to change in the future. Oh, damn it. They also tend to overreact very, very strongly to when the market shifts. So as soon as interest rates started to go up, they slammed the brakes and cut headcount because, again, they were extrapolating into the future that interest rates would continue to rise for a long time. And so this may seem like really, really poor behavior from a macroeconomic point of view, to invest too much and then to withdraw money too quickly from the market. And frankly, it is. But one thing you have to understand about venture capitalists is, oh, hold on, sorry, this clicker is terrible. They're basically this guy. I hope you've all seen Wolf of Wall Street. This is what venture capitalists are, right? They're Mark Hanna guy pounding his chest. They're looking for easy money. And there's a lot of places in the world where you can get money. If money is free, tech is the right place to invest. If money isn't free, there are many other places. Oil, commodities, other places to invest. So the money sloshes around from one part to another of the market, and what you saw in tech that may have given you pause or concern about your career was simply a moment of macroeconomic change. Nothing more, nothing less. So here's what I want all of you to take away from this before we start talking about how to take advantage of this situation. Nothing has happened to the internet. You may have noticed it's on your phone still. You're still using it for everything. Technology still needs technologists to do work. But if you remember the tail end of the graph that I showed you, interest rates are still high. Money is still relatively, historically speaking, expensive. And so businesses are very much still looking for ways to cut costs. My clients are actively looking for ways to have staffing and other operational aspects be cheaper. And Nigerians are specifically very uniquely positioned to take advantage of this phenomenon. I think there's a startup opportunity in clickers that work. For starters, you have great schools and universities. Nigeria has a very smart culture that produces a lot of people, a lot of smart people. I'm not blowing smoke here. Really, it's a great culture for intelligence and education. English is a first or primary language for many, many Nigerians. That's incredibly valuable in the global workforce. Your time zone. I know you didn't choose your time zone, but it's a great time zone because you overlap perfectly with European companies, and you overlap very, very well with the East Coast of America. So that makes you very desirable as a workforce for global companies. I could politely say you have improving power and internet infrastructure. It is improving. That's a true statement. And the most important thing is, something I've learned from the 3 years of working with Nigerians, is you're willing to work very hard to get ahead. And right now the door is open for you to do so, okay? But before I talk about how to do that, I want to hit on one huge piece of this conversation that hasn't come up yet. Isn't artificial intelligence going to replace us all? Why should I start a career if artificial intelligence is going to replace programmers everywhere? Like, is it going to be Rise the Bots? Oops. Well, if the clicker worked, you'd see the answer is no. So here's the second half of what I asked ChatGPT. I asked it to talk about AI. And this is the answer that I got. Another major factor reshaping the tech workforce is the rapid adoption of AI and automation. As company explore efficiencies through AI, especially in areas like customer service and data analysis, they're reconsidering traditional staffing needs, often downsizing the roles that AI can fulfill. This trend, coupled with economic caution, has led to a leaner tech hiring market. Okay, that is not true, okay? That is not at all what happened. What happened is that money got expensive. Now, it is true that companies want to hire in AI, but they're not hiring in AI to replace their workforce. That's not what's happening at all. They're hiring to develop AI-focused products. The reason that they're laying off in other sectors is because it's not cheap for them to have those people, okay? So the idea that all these companies are focusing on AI and that that's why they let go of their workforces, don't believe that for a second. AI was the hype at the time that these layoffs needed to be announced, and so it was a good cover. But AI is not replacing programmers. There's no evidence of that whatsoever on a broad scale. And you should not be worried that AI is going to replace you if you become a techie. I would love it if this clicker worked. There we go. So I want to make this point really clearly. If you are interested in being a techie, AI as it exists today, and as we understand it will exist in the next foreseeable years, cannot replace understanding, okay? And AI is simply a text prediction. You put in several trillion documents of input, and you give it a prompt, and it predicts the words that would come next. It does nothing more than that, okay? It's a really convincing text prediction model. If you have the wrong inputs, or if you have the wrong training corpus, you get wrong outputs. And experience means avoiding wrong inputs and being able to recognize wrong outputs. Because the computer is simply predicting text, it cannot detect wrong. I think everyone here has used ChatGPT, and it has come back with an answer, an incredibly enthusiastic answer that was completely wrong, right? Everyone's had that experience? Yeah, okay. Imagine that for programs, right? Everyone who writes software, you're like, oh my God, that's a terrible idea, right? A piece of code that enthusiastically does the wrong thing. Oops. So you can't short circuit your learning. Learn to work as a techie without AI help. Seriously, do not use AI to short circuit your learning. Once you understand how things actually work, use AI as a tool to help you work faster. But if you cannot recognize a wrong output, or if you cannot formulate a correct input, you cannot use AI effectively. Always be suspicious of AI output. Always verify it manually. I know that everyone's like, yeah, whatever. I'll just use Copilot. I promise you it ends in tears. I promise you that you will get caught in the hiring process. People who are expert at what we do will see it, and they will kick you out of the hiring pipeline. And even if you get lucky enough to land the job, you'll be found out 2 weeks into your work, okay? Learn the job first and use AI as a tool. But what you should be doing today is learning how to interact with AI-based systems and APIs, because that's a fundamental part of product design now and will be in the future. Okay, so let's get to what you care about. How do I get one of these sweet paying jobs that Nick promises me still exists? Okay, this is where I'm going to plug Tightline a little bit, but this advice is really general advice, so if you never talk to us about a position, it's still, in my mind, good advice. If you are a beginner, there are fantastic resources for you here in Nigeria. I'm just going to list a few of them. This is not an exhaustive list, but they are out there. Of course, HNG internship, led by the incomparable Mark Essien, has produced so many talents. Let's give him a hand for his hard work in the tech community. Thank you, Mark. There's also Start Innovation Hub here in Uyo, the Code Camp program, producing talents right here in Uyo. They're great. And of course, ALX throughout Africa is running fantastic programs. I had a chance to meet with a bunch of ALX graduates in Rwanda last week. It was great fun. It's amazing what they're doing. This is a lot of opportunity, okay? If you want to get into the field, you've got options. That's if you're a beginner, okay? You need to take that first step. But once you've graduated from one of these boot camps, with all apologies to SpongeBob SquarePants, get a job, okay? You need to get a job. Anyone who tells you that you can go to a boot camp and graduate into a global job making thousands of dollars a month, hold on to your wallet. It's not true. They're lying to you. Spend 1 to 2 years, ideally 2 years, working at a local company. Find out what it's like when real code intersects with real human beings. All of the good, bad, ugly warts that come with that. Go get that experience, okay? Once you have done that, this is a little bit of a bucket of cold water. Once you've done that, you are ready to be an intern at the global level. People are like, I'm not an intern. I'm a senior software developer at my company. No, you're not, okay? I love you all, but no, you're not. If you've been working for 3 years, you are not a senior software developer. But we have ways to help you get there. So if you're a junior dev with any meaningful work experience, like a couple years, whatever, real job, whoops. Sorry, this clicker is maddening. We at Tightline have a couple of programs to introduce you to the world of global software development. We have our Helios program, where we pay you, starting at $250 USD a month, to become an intern, and you can eventually graduate in a full-time, open-ended software development position. We also have our Level Up Academy for more advanced students. That is a paid internship. We pay you starting at $800 a month for Full Stack Development Academy, an internship that lasts 8 months, also ending in a full-time position. If you're a junior dev, these are the right programs for you. Put your ego aside, come talk to us. If you can get in the door, these are fantastic opportunities to work with global companies. For if you are ready to go, if you are a person who's been doing this for 4+ years, you've worked in a global environment, whatever, then there's a different story, okay? And we do meet a lot of people in Nigeria like this. They've really got real global workforce experience. You should be definitely using Upwork and other freelancing sites to get started with this. You should be focusing on your soft skills, your communication, meeting protocols, understanding that you live in a different time zone than other people, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then when you are ready to go with that, you should look for a vendor, not naming any names, but like us, that has a transparent pricing model. This is a big bugaboo of mine. There are vendors all around the world, TopTal, Andela, many others, where what they're paying people locally and what they're charging the clients, there's a massive disconnect in terms of value delivery. And we don't have that as a vendor. We tell you, we charge a 15% surcharge on your work. You're making $1,000 a month, we're charging $150 a month. You're making $4,000 a month, we're charging $600 a month. It's always 15%. It's the lowest that I know of in the industry. We're completely honest and upfront about it. Look for a vendor that will do something like that for you. It doesn't have to be us. But the bigger the company is, the more salespeople that they have that they need to pay, the less of the money that's going in your pocket. So pick your vendor wisely. Look for a vendor who understands the challenges of being in Nigeria. Okay, Nigeria is not the simplest place in the world to be a global employee. So someone who understands that, who understands the currency exchange issues in Nigeria, someone who understands internet and power issues in Nigeria. If they've got working experience on the ground, that's beneficial to you. Now, if you've got all those problems solved, maybe you don't need that. But especially for people who are cracking into the global market, it's really great to have a vendor who can do that. Come on. A vendor that provides training and community. This is where I'll give a shout out to Andela. Interacting with Andela, ex-Andela devs in Uganda last week, I was amazed at the long-term impact of the Andela community and training on the tech scene there. That's to be admired. That's a really important feature from your vendor, not just sending you a paycheck every month, but making sure that you grow and that you learn relevant new technologies and that you learn them well. And lastly, if it matters for you, there are vendors who provide an office, they provide electricity, they provide reliable internet. Like I mentioned, we have an office that we just opened in Uyo with all of those things. If that's something that's hard for you to get in your community, talk to a vendor who can help you with that. And if you live here in Uyo and you're a software developer, talk to us, please. We are hiring actively all the time. Okay, here's where you can whip out your phone and grab a QR code. If you're a mid or senior dev, if you're a TPM, UI, UX, product owner, marketing, video, content, editors, whatever, please take a snapshot of this. We are hiring. This is my plug for Tightline right now. Please grab a screenshot or see any one of us after the talk, and we'll give you a URL. And let's lastly talk about the conclusions for you as Nigerian techies from what I talked about today. Tech markets are very strong. They're very, very strong globally, okay? But cost sensitivity is a big deal, okay? That's just reality. We're in a difficult interest rate environment and businesses are looking for any way to save money. You Nigerians are uniquely positioned to take advantage of this. You guys have great introductory boot camps, but you need to be willing to take lower paying entry-level jobs to get that real world experience. I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a fast path to a multiple $1,000s per month job. It doesn't exist. Do that work. You must be willing to do it. Build your skills with freelancing work and learn how to be a remote developer who can communicate well and set expectations with their clients. And then look for a trustworthy vendor to connect you to global work. They are out there. Tightline is one of them, but there are many others. You can learn from all sorts of websites what the reputations are. Trust is very, very important, okay? The money should be going to you because you're the one generating the value, and you should find a vendor who believes that. Lastly, this is really important. When you've made it, stay involved. Be part of the community that brought you along. Mentor the next generation. That's how we're going to achieve the sort of critical mass that we need here in Nigeria to make the tech community a permanent and strong feature of the economy. Okay, that's everything I have to say. Thank you very much. If there are questions, Mark Yessian is going to come up and we're going to be doing a little fireside chat. I don't know if there might be time at the end of that for questions, Mark, but we'll have to save them until then. Thank you very much.
I believe you should clap better, please. I believe you should. You should clap better, please. I'll say something about Nick, but let me allow them. We'll have to move straight to the fireside chat. I'll be moderated by a very dear Mark Essien, a marketing expert, of course, founder, hotels.ng. I don't like the way you are clapping for founders. Also, to join the panel, I'd like to welcome Ian Aboye, G-O-O-N. Please put your hands together for him. Founder, partner, Future Africa, and also the managing partner, Accelerate Africa. Can you please clap for founders? If you are the founder in your family, can you clap for regional founders here?
Good. All right. So welcome to Uyo. Welcome to our fireside chat. Ian Aboyeji. I guess everybody knows him, but I'll do a bit of reintroduction. He was the co-founder of Andela, which is a billion-dollar company. He was the co-founder of Flutterwave, again a billion-dollar company, and he's the founder of Future Africa, where he does early-stage investments, and he already has a few billion-dollar companies in his portfolio. So that's like proper billion-dollar people here. And we've just met Nick. Nick is doing what Andela used to do. He's hiring a lot in Nigeria. He's basically creating, a lot of developers, a lot of people will work with him. And it's not all audio, this is real. There's an office in Shelter Afrique now, very nice, and they are ramping up very rapidly. So today I'd like let's have a conversation, very casual conversation about, what's going on, how the market is, and what we're expecting to see. So let me ask the first general question. Should we still be optimistic about Nigeria? Ian.
Thank you very much for having me here in Akwa Ibom. This is one of my many home states, so it's always a pleasure to be here. Again, the answer to that question you knew before you asked, Mark, because I'm always optimistic about Nigeria. But I would say I have never been more optimistic about Nigeria as I am right now, because the economy, for the first time, is actually being recalibrated to be competitive globally. So, as I was saying a few weeks ago, or last week on television, the challenge that we've had in this country, particularly since 2011, is that we were a monoproduct export country, thanks to Akwa Ibom in large part. We used to export oil. Unfortunately, not only has that product price come down because there's quite a bit of competition for oil, it's also not as profitable as it used to be as a business for us, also because a lot of our own oil reserves have declined over the years. So what has happened to us as an economy is that over time, the dollar earning per person has actually reduced. Now, the politicians used to deceive everybody into not voting by employed. Nick would actually find it more profitable to employ more mid-level developers, So it's a great time in Nigeria. If you are investing right now, it's an amazing time to invest. And as a young person, it's a great opportunity. It's painful. I'm going to acknowledge that. T-Pain has done all of us a number. But he's giving us tough medicine. And hopefully we take the Panadol for T-Pain.
Okay, great. And so Nick, what do you say to that? What do you think from your perspective?
From my perspective, I think my money is where my mouth is. Like, we're hiring here in huge numbers. We've gone up by a factor of 10 in 2 years. And our strategic vision is that we get to 500 developers in Nigeria in the next 2 years. So I think if you're a techie, it's a fantastic time for opportunities. Like, we're obviously not the only people hiring, right? And the point has been made several times. The diversification away from a monolithic economy is the first thing that unshackles a country to actually grow economically. And they're trying to do this right now in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I got to say, at the end of the day, it's still mostly a desert. Nigeria's got real natural resources, and it's got a lot of smart people. So as it continues to rotate away from a petro economy, I think that the sky is really the limit. And again, I'm not saying that to blow smoke. Like, my money is where my mouth is. I think that tech could be huge in Nigeria if just a few challenges are addressed intelligently. And those ones are the ones I've been beating the drum about for 2 years now. Education, roads, electricity, internet. If these problems can be solved, I think the sky is the limit.
All right, thanks. Many people are here for a reason, which is they want to get into tech, and they want to get into tech so they can make that money, right? There are people in this audience I know earning 3-4 million naira a month. Very common, very normal when you're a software developer. Nick spoke already about how someone can get a job, but Ian, I want you to give us the formula, step by step, right? Don't skip anything. How can somebody that knows nothing, they are just beginning,
Yes.
Within 3 years, how can they be earning $2,000 a month?
Well, I think that for a very long time we've not had an entry level. But if I were you, I would go on 3mtt.nida.gov.ng. I'll sign up. I'll take the basic courses. I'll go on YouTube, sign up, take some more basic courses. If there's any sort of tech mentor, somebody that's not too far above that I know in my network, I would engage that person. And then the next thing I would do is start to build a few projects, even if they were very small, tiny projects. And then I would start to apply for entry-level jobs, just like Nick was saying. But entry-level jobs in Nigeria, I wouldn't do the foreign entry-level jobs yet. I'll do entry-level jobs in Nigeria and show them my portfolio of projects. And I would look for startups that have gotten maybe pre-seed funding or seed funding. They may not necessarily be paying too much. They may be looking for 200,000 naira a month, 250,000 naira a month engineers. I'll start from there, and I will prove my value over time. Undoubtedly, if you work for a company that even has a bunch of angel investors and you deliver a product with a product team, you will inevitably get the skills you need to become a great remote developer. And that's when I will now start to look into foreign jobs, doing a few freelance projects on the side and then going like that. So just to give you a timeline, the first 6 months, I would not do any work. I would just be learning. If I can borrow money from my friends or my family or live at home or whatever I need to do for that 6 months, or save enough internet money data for that 6 months and go and live in my village, save money for Starlink, whatever it is, just save enough money to buy internet and be in a place where you can eat for 6 months, do all the program. Then after that, I would reach out to local tech companies that are hiring. I would just avoid the banks because the pace of development there might be slower. But I would focus on like startups that are building a product at the early stages so I can be mentored, especially if they have a very good CTO or a senior developer on their team. And I would work like, for the next 3 months, I would just work like there's no tomorrow. That first year, no partying, my friends will not see me. No, that's not the time to go and start competing with Yahoo boys in the club. Oh. You go lost. Then the second year, my second year, I would dedicate that to improving my craft. So I would dedicate one every Saturday and maybe another day a week, right? I would just focus on watching YouTube videos and building projects with the skills that I've learned. If the only thing you're doing as a developer with less than 2 years of experience is your job, you don't lost. No hope for you. Because the thing about development skill is that it grows with practice. So you need to build random things. Build for anybody that just tells you, I want website. Just before the person says website, just build it and dash the person self. Give it as gift. It's all about building your craft that second year, right? Then the third year, that's the time that I think engaging now. By then, people know you have projects. People know you have work. People know that you know what you're talking about because you've built with experience. So that's the year you can now start networking, applying to jobs abroad. Preferably look for somebody who has already done it and try and get some recommendation from them and stuff like that. So that's the 3-year path to earning 3 million naira a month.
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna.
I do actually hire people who follow that path, and I would say that where I identify the gaps are that they haven't bothered to go deep on parts of the craft that seem uninteresting or unnecessary to them. So they work on a Windows box instead of a Linux box. They don't really learn Git. They think that Git just means you type git add dot and git commit, and they don't really know what's going on. They don't learn database technology. There are fundamental aspects that are underneath all web development that a lot of people say, oh, that's backend, or oh, that's DevOps. That's a load of crap. The way the web works, every web server that you're interacting with is a Linux box, okay? So understand how Linux works. It's a free operating system. It runs on cheap hardware. Get an old used laptop, put Linux on it, learn Docker, really learn Git, really understand how databases work, so that when you get that chance at year 3 for an interview, when you get those hard questions, you know what you're talking about. I pan people all the time because all they've been focusing on is doing pretty CSS, and I can't work with that. I need the full realm of knowledge.
All right, that makes sense. So let's jump a little bit back to Andela, right? Some years back, we have heard everything, Nick, that you said here. We had Andela coming here and telling us, we're going to train you, we're going to hire you, we're going to put you in all these jobs. Some years later, Andela said bye-bye, and they were out. So, Nick, what are you doing? You're doing part of what Andela used to do. What are your thoughts on why Andela left? What are you doing differently? And Ian, when he says, I'd like you to respond then to what he says.
So I'm going to be diplomatic, but okay, well, so first of all, I really do want to reiterate what I said. The mark that Andela left in communities in terms of building community and educating people is fantastic, right? The shadow of Andela is still in countries where you've pulled out of, or not you, but Andela has pulled out of. But I also am on the hiring side for vendors. My wife, Adrienne, runs the global recruiting team at a very large US-based company, and they have more than 40 different vendors. Rapid River is just one, Cactus Code is just one. So I'm privy to a lot of conversations with a lot of vendors, and I sat in on a sales call with Andela, and with a straight face, they were offering us senior DevOps engineers from Africa for 15,000 USD a month. And I almost fell out of my chair laughing. And I said to myself, well, I know no one in Africa is getting $15,000 a month, so where the hell is all this money going to? And that's the drum I keep banging about finding a vendor that gives you a transparent pricing model. I think it's at the heart of what gave Andela trouble. When you have a large sales organization and a lot of mouths to feed, there's just too much money that needs to be taken off the top. And honestly, like, it's not that Nigerians are any less valuable than anyone else, but the reality is companies are looking to hire here not just because you're smart and you're hardworking, but also because it saves them money. And if someone is then adding a huge margin on top of that, that means they're no longer saving money, that's the end of the story. So I guess I don't really want to speak out of school because I really don't know how Andela worked internally, but I have to feel like that was a bad strategic decision for Andela to have such high markups.
of infrastructure that they can get. So if your state governor is still dilly-dallying on building a tech park, being able to put 1,000 developers, 3,000 developers in one place, provide the infrastructure and power to make it work, he is going to lose. Because eventually, one day Nick will look at his balance sheet and say, you know what, that was a great dream, and I love the people, but I really have to make some money. So I'm gonna, and someone like me will call from Lagos and tell Nick, hey Nick, you're wasting your time. You can scale to 1,500 people in Lagos, and I'll give you power, I'll give you infrastructure at a fraction of the cost that you are providing it for in Akwa Ibom. Are you game or are you not game? And if you're not game, I'm going to go to your competitor, one of the 40 vendors, and offer the same deal to them. And eventually, even if he loves Akwa Ibom from the bottom of his heart, he'll crack. And he'll take my deal because he has to keep his lights on and all the people that he's employed. And you know what? The jackpot will start from Akwa Ibom. So all the people that Mark has trained, they will jackpot to Lagos first. Then after that, they will jackpot to Amsterdam where there is infrastructure.
All right. If you guys are looking for infrastructure, my father has one land in Torino.
Tell your governor to go and build it up. World class. Put the investment there.
Okay.
He doesn't need another stadium. That's where they are making money. He should go and build a proper world-class tech facility. And he can talk to people like Mark, that are already, like Nick, that are already here to come and occupy that facility. Because the thing is, the companies grow so fast. Like at Andela, I moved office 6 times in 1 year. 6 times. And even now today in Lagos, I have, because now I do quite a bit of work on tech infrastructure, I have clients that today they'll tell me, oh, I need 1,000 square meters. Tomorrow, 3,000 square meters. By the end of the year, 5,000 square meters. There's not enough space. And something is happening in Lagos that you guys have to be aware of as Akwa Ibom. I'm only talking to you as Akwa Ibom, so you understand the game you're playing. A lot of Lagos developers went and built very expensive buildings, right? Grade A office space. And now they are struggling to sell it. So by the time T-Pain is in full effect, they are going to be forced to bring down their prices, right? And it's Lagos. So you're going to end up competing with Lagos. There's no question about it. And all your best talent will go where the jobs are. I mean, if they give you work for Lagos, you know, go. You're hearing them. So my friend from the government, your work is cut out for you. I always laugh at state governors that don't prioritize tech, because if you are not in Lagos, it's really your only industry that you can do. That's the truth. If you're looking to diversify your state income. If you don't invest in tech, nobody's going to come here to do entertainment. You understand what I'm saying? They're going to do it in Lagos, where all the people are. Nobody's going to come here and do retail per se. They're going to do it in Lagos, where the people are. So the only thing that you can probably attract to your state are developers, and especially if you have a state that has good infrastructure, nice airline, you can come in and leave the same day, you know. It's important for your state to prioritize infrastructure development, because that was what Andela lacked. And when they realized that, look, even the people we are recruiting don't want to be here, they then said, okay, we are now a cloud company, which means that over a third of Andela fellows are probably sitting with you in Germany, right? As opposed to in any African country. So this is the future. I'm just showing you what will happen. Maybe in the next 3 Akwa Ibom Tech Weeks, we should not be saying, how had we known?
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's really nice that Nick came last year, you liked Uyo, and then now we'll have an office already. You know, and I think Uyo has that welcoming attitude. We have the infrastructure to some extent that actually would make it a very good destination.
Actually, I'd like to point out that developers of ours that were trained in Lekki, in Lagos, actually moved to Uyo when given the chance. It's a great place to live. The cost of living is low. Your traffic doesn't suck, which I appreciate. And if we can solve, I mean, don't get me wrong, we have infrastructure issues in Lekki also.
You should talk about the infrastructure. You should talk about the infrastructure issues you're having in Uyo. Where are you going to scale to 500 developers in Uyo?
Well, I'll be honest, we're definitely a scrappy company. So like right now we're using estate houses that are tricked out with redundant power and internet. It doesn't scale very well. But, no, I know, right? But you solve one problem at a time, right?
Well, sometimes the responsibility of government is to consider all the problems that are going to confront startups and then solve them from the top.
Absolutely, and so we've already started the conversation with the state government here.
Very good.
So it's a problem for 2025, but 2025 is not that far away. One point I want to make about people moving to Germany, there is a cost of living barrier that differentiates the types of tech workers we're talking about. It's true that if you're a very senior developer and you can compete on a completely level playing field in the global market, you can earn the type of money that will allow you to live anywhere. But there is a long stretch of time before you get there, okay? I mean, I'm a developer with 31 years of experience, and I think I only really became senior about 15 or 18 years into my experience. That's kind of a slow learner, but it takes a while. And so there's gonna always be a very, very large tranche of junior and mid and even advanced mid developers where they're not gonna make the sort of money that allows them to just up and move to the Netherlands, and they can live a great life here in Nigeria. And the reality is that I want senior developers to make enough to stay here and stay with their families and be able to see their village, you know, from time to time. Like, that's important. But I understand the flight risk, as it were, exists with senior developers. But that is just a fraction of the jobs we're talking about. And I think that between the people who want to stay in Nigeria for whatever reasons, and the very large number of people who are going to be making enough money to live well in Nigeria but can't yet relocate, we have a chance to build a pretty large ecosystem here, even despite that challenge of very senior developers leaving.
So, Ian, this is a big problem, right, on the same topic. When developers reach a certain stage, they tend to leave. Like, many of them are going to US, UK, Canada, Poland, Germany, all kinds of places. Will we ever have senior developers that actually want to stay in Nigeria?
I think you will. You know, in fact, what often happens, it's like a life cycle, right? So, yes, you want to leave. And actually, the truth is, developers are not leaving just because of infrastructure. They're leaving also because of the level of seniority of talent that they can work with, because they want to improve their craft. So the more senior people decide to come and live here, the less likely they are to leave, because they're really leaving for the experience. That's the truth.
Absolutely. There's a critical mass effect that we just haven't hit that level, and we're not really, honestly, close to it yet.
Yeah.
But if we could do it, then it could be sort of like an engine turning over and running on its own.
Exactly. So that's why it's important to actually think about it that way. Now, we will have a number of the guys who were in the UK, whatever, they're coming back, right? They're coming back. They're saying, look, it doesn't make sense for me to be dealing with this high cost of living, dealing with, you know, my tax going up, etc., etc. The Naira is so much cheaper now. You know, it would be insane for me to be earning £15,000 a month, and I'm spending, you know, £9,000. I can only save 4,000 when I could be saving £10,000 or using £10,000 to run my own startup or whatever else it is that I want to do. So they're actually coming back, but it depends on who gives them the infrastructure. I keep harping on infrastructure because it's a problem of scale. 500 people employed will not move the needle for Akwa Ibom, right? Ardella is already doing those numbers. What will move the needle is if Nick can build 5,000 in Akwa Ibom. And that is going to be a function of how well he's supported on infrastructure.
All right, that makes sense. So let me jump topics, two more topics. Innovation. Basically, we are talking all this, but what we are really talking about is us as developers working and building the innovations for people in the US and in the UK and all that. Elon Musk is building his rockets. People are creating ChatGPT and so on. We are not doing that. At most, we are making a button on the ChatGPT website or something like that, right? When will this ever change? Will we always be the ones just working for them, or will we ever be the innovators? So, Nick, I think you go first, and then Ian.
I think the talent is there. I think the question that I have, and this shows my ignorance about the African market, is it's hard for me to spot the market where Africans have a unique advantage in the global tech sphere. So I think if it happens, if there are true unicorns that are built here in Africa, I do struggle a little bit to see what the market will be, but I think that's my own ignorance. I don't think there's a lack of talent, and there's certainly not a lack of hard work, but I think there might be a lack of opportunity for whatever the product is. One example that comes to mind, though, is Grab, which was a Southeast Asian ride-hailing company, did actually grow to that unicorn size completely independently because they solved a problem in their local region very, very well and built their technology very, very well and scaled to the level where Uber came in and purchased them. So I think that there are opportunities like that, but I struggle to see the SpaceX type opportunity. I'd love to be told that I'm an ignorant bum and that I'm obviously missing it. So please tell me that.
No, I won't tell you that because, well, I think the truth is the competitive advantage for Africa is actually talent. And I always say the way to think about our contribution to the world is that you're going to have talented Nigerians building all these things, both in the creative space, you know, both in they're going to make Afrobeats and movies, but they'll also make space rockets. I know people in Lagos who actually have a lab that tests space rockets for rocket companies, Rocket Lab and a bunch. I don't know if they do for SpaceX, but they do for a bunch of, they test rockets for rocket companies in a free zone. So people are already starting to get into these things. We have satellite communication. We have our own satellite communication startup as a country called NIGECOMSAT that actually does satellite weather mapping and all sorts of deals for global governments who want to find out some information for research on Africa. But we have to, the point of view I've had is one that we have to think like India. We have to think about talent first, because talent is ultimately our biggest competitive advantage. Now that talent, by apprenticing and learning from the world, will now be able to train their skills on the continent's own problems and solve them. And that's how you're going to be able to build these technologies to come back home. But if we are too obsessed with not finishing our breakfast and trying to jump over talent, it won't work. I keep saying the difference between this epoch of tech and previous epochs we're not the first to do tech ecosystem, but the reason why this one is sustaining is because it's grounded on talent. The first thing that we developed in this epoch of tech was a broad talent base, so that you didn't build companies like SocketWorks was before us that now had to go to India to get talent to come and solve problems in Nigeria. So a lot of things are built unsustainably because they don't start with that human capital element of making sure your people truly understand what it is they're building. Until that happens, you're not going to be able to do all this stuff for people. Think about it as working for Nick is your apprenticeship for ultimately building for Africa. If you don't work for Nick for 10 years, you're never going to get the skills to be able to build something for Africa. India also went through that phase. They built for others.
I hate to interrupt, but India also did something that, with all due respect, Nigeria hasn't done. They built the IITs.
We're building, so I'll say this, Nigeria has actually invested a lot in its educational institutions. The challenge we have is that we haven't really aligned those educational institutions to industry and taught skills that are relevant for industry. In this country, you have 6 Digital Bridge Institute campuses, huge, all wasting away. Right? In this country, I think you have about between 12 to 20 universities of technology in this country. In this country, in fact, in this regime, 3MTT was launched. It's the largest talent accelerator in the world. But the country still doesn't understand how to invest in human capital. Unfortunately, they think it's about paying professors, which is the worst way to invest in human capital, right? But it's not but the truth is, people like you are creating an incentive for us to build an alternate education system. In fact, when we started Andela, the big idea was we're going to build an alternate education system that would ultimately supplant the existing education system because it wasn't serving young people with the skills they needed to be able to build to solve our problems.
Okay, I have thoughts about that. So I have a liberal arts education. I majored in physics and math, and I did go to a 4-year university and then to grad school. to learn basic science, which has served me very well as a programmer. I get worried when I hear people talking about alternative education systems that try to bypass that and just get right to the answer, because understanding science and math is foundational to thinking logically, which is what you need in this
You don't
job.
have to go to school to do that. You can learn it on YouTube. I'm being honest. You go, you
I
buy
would be
new
very,
lessons.
very worried if I was flying in an airplane that was designed by an engineer who learned their engineering on YouTube.
You'll be shocked. Well, I'll say this. I would also be very worried if I was flying in an airplane with a pilot that had never been trained by another senior pilot.
Fair, absolutely. It's not one or the other. I absolutely agree that the work experience is critical. But I think my point about the IITs is they are traditional education institutions that provide an insanely strong background in hard science and thinking, which then applies directly to the industry. And I just think that I get worried about again, skipping your breakfast, trying to jump right to the industrial vocational skills without that background. And I think it's a legitimate problem. I see it a lot everywhere in the world.
All right, guys. I think we're running out.
No. Akwa Ibom.
Akwa Ibom. Say it. Yeah, close enough.